Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT Media Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use a couple of my new fall studio backdrops in Photoshop. There are some of them that look a little bit more painted and some of them that look a little bit more realistic. I'm going to show a couple different ways and using different blending modes to use different ones. So I have opened the images that I'm going to use for these. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on my background layer and go to my quick selection tool and select subject up at the top. And then I want to make sure, use my plus and minus tools for selection to make sure that my subject is selected pretty good. I'm going to go to my plus selection because there's a couple parts that it didn't select here on the dress. Now that looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my background layer, create a layer mask, and press Control or Command plus I on your keyboard to invert that layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up to File, Place Embedded, and you can navigate to the folder wherever your backdrops are saved and click on, double-click on whichever backdrop you want to use. I'm going to use this one. Okay, and then for now I'm going to change the blending mode just so I can kind of see what I'm working with here. So as you can see, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And as you can see, the light is coming from, actually I'm going to put it back on normal, you can see a little bit better. The light is coming from the left on my backdrop and the light is coming from the right on my subject. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure my overlay layer is selected, click on that box, right click on the backdrop and flip horizontal. And now I'm actually going to keep this on normal blending mode, I think, for this one. So I'm going to go ahead, you can hold down Alt on your keyboard and you can put it behind your subject that way. By creating a clipping mask, you can also right click and find Create Clipping Mask here in your options there. Or Release Clipping Mask, you can simply drag it between and then invert this layer again by pressing Control or Command I on your keyboard. It really depends on which way you want to work with the file. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do it this way. And I'm going to make sure my subject is proportional to the backdrop, which it looks good. I'm going to just pull her up. Oops, I don't want to resize her there. Just a little bit on the backdrop. And then you want to click on your layer mask here and you're going to want to zoom in and go around the edge of your layer here. And as you can see, there's just a little thin black line. I don't want to paint that all off. I'm going to stay on my clipping mask and I'm going to go up to Filter, Other, and go down to Minimum. And then as you can see, like if I bring this radius all the way down, it's going to take a minute to work. You're going to see that black line, and then as you slowly start to bring it up a little bit, it's going to take away that black line, or it might be a white line. You might not need to do this, but if you have a line that's around your image, this will just bring it in just a tiny bit. I'm actually going to go to about 6, I think was good for this image when it first opened up. Press OK. Now as you can see, that got rid of that dark line around her body. Okay, zoom out. And now I would go around the face and the hair and everything and just clean up those edges. You would use your black and white brush on 100% opacity on your layer mask over here, just to brush on and off those layers. I can show you real quick. If you use a small brush, soft brush, 100% opacity, and black would brush off here. Press X on your keyboard, switch between black and white would brush on. You could just go around your image and clean up those edges. Okay, and now I could add simple shadow to the floor if I wanted to keep it this way, but I personally like to brush in the original floor if I can. That way I save myself time on shadows, which is why I decided to do a lighter drop for this image because she was on a light floor. So I'm actually going to use my layer mask here, and I'm going to use a bigger brush at 100% opacity. Sorry, not black, white here. And I'm just going to brush on that original floor just around the bottom of her dress, so that way we can keep our original layers. And however you want to fill this in down here, I'm actually going to do that at the end when I'm done editing the backdrop. Now I'm going to come to my backdrop here. You can duplicate it before you add blur if you want to. The floor is already, I already painted it on, so I'm not going to worry about duplicating the layer and worrying about having blur on my floor because it's not going to affect this image. So I'm just going to add blur to the whole digital backdrop. So I'm just going to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and 4.1 is good. I'll probably go down to 3. Press OK, and you're going to want to do that because now you can see the subject is sharper than the backdrop. You don't want your backdrop to be sharper than your subject because that's not how it would be in real life. As far as shadow painting onto the backdrop, I'm not going to do that either because there's a lot of light falling seemingly between the subject and the backdrop, so there would be a bunch of light back here other than back here by the dress, and that's already added in because we got rid of that, or we added in our original floor. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flatten everything now. And then, like I said before, you can use whatever method you want. I'm just going to use my rectangle marquee and highlight that, right click, and do Content Aware Fill. Oh, sorry, Fill, Content Aware, and press OK. Or you could paint it in, whatever you wanted to do, but that's a quick way to fill it. And then sometimes I like to go around, if your subject still seems a little bit copy and pasted, I would just use the blur tool and go around the very edge of your subject, just so there's a nice fall off from your subject to, see how it's nice and blurred right here? We want to kind of match that fall off onto the digital. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of blur to the very edges. I don't like to do the face and the hair. I like to kind of leave that the way it is. See, should have brushed off the hair a little bit more there. Okay, zoom out, and let's go up to before and after. Okay, so now that was using one of the backdrops on a normal blending mode. You would really have to make sure that your light and your tones and colors match on those ones. I apologize, I forgot to say in the beginning, if my color balance or this video the color seems very off. I'm working on a different computer today that's not calibrated, so the video might look a little muddy for colors. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I'm going to do this one next, and this is going to be, I'm going to use this, I think, on a like multiply or something blending mode and try to make it look a little different than the initial image. So I'm going to go to my quick selection tool again, select subject, and then I'm going to use my plus tool because I want this selected too. Everything else looks good right here too. Everything else looks good. Go ahead and duplicate and create that layer mask. And then go up to File and Place Embedded. And choose the backdrop. The light is falling on in the same way, so I'm going to leave that. Resize here. And now play around with my different blending modes here. I think I want to use multiply. Yeah, I think I'm going to use multiply. And then I want to bring up the brightness of that real quick. So I'm just going to put an adjustment layer. I'm going to use a curves adjustment layer. And I'm going to click this right here to create a clipping mask so it's only applied to the backdrop there. And I'm just going to play around with that. Maybe let's try an exposure layer. There we go, that worked. That worked better. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and apply some blur to that. Let me merge these first. Change it back to multiply blending mode. Blur, Gaussian blur. Do about 3 is good. Okay, and then I'm going to either create that clipping mask or drag between, whichever one you want to do. I'm just going to create a clipping mask on this one. And then I got to invert that. You might have to invert back and forth depending on the way that you're doing it. If I didn't do that and I just dragged between, then it would be fine, which I can just edit it this way as well. I'm going to drag the floor up a little bit more so that way her feet are a little bit more forward on the floor. Now as you can see, it looks like she's standing on a wood floor now just from changing that blending mode. But I do want the backdrop and stuff to show through on the fabric a little bit. So I'm going to go up to my mask here, and I'm going to use a brush at about 20% opacity. Oops, my black brush, not my white one. And just brush off a little bit. See how now you can, if you zoom in, you can see that leaf through the fabric because I want it to look realistic there. And then zoom in a little bit more and just check our edges. That really probably doesn't matter as much. I'm going to go up to 100% right here. No, it doesn't. You're not going to see anything through there. But if you could see a leaf or something, then you could fix it. Come down to the feet here. They need a little bit of adjustment there. Brushed around. Press X to switch between your black and white. Fix it up around the feet. Okay, that looks good. I think everything else looks good. Okay, and see that one was just a quick overlay on the original backdrop. We can do before and after again. Before, after. So different ways you can use them. Different blending modes gives you a whole different look. You can add a different floor. You can keep your original floor like I did in that one. If you have any questions, you can send me a message. If you are a studio photographer, I would love for you to join my group on Facebook. It is for professional studio photographers, and you must answer the questions to join. I do that to prevent spam. It will be declined if you do not provide that. We like to keep a clean group. If you check out my YouTube channel, where you are probably watching this already, we have a lot of other free helpful tutorials on there.